the 1990s, Yugoslavia split up into a bunch of different states, and it was just a bunch of civil wars. It was a hot mess in there throughout the 1990s. This was sort of the end of that whole thing. And Serbia, which is one of the states that emerged, there was a chunk of it called Kosovo. And Serbia was mostly Serbians. Kosovo is mostly Albanians. And so the people of Kosovo said, well, if everybody else is breaking away, so should we. And the Serbs said, screw you guys. And they sent in troops and other things. And there was a bunch of well-documented human rights violations in this whole thing. So the Serbs are fighting these Albanian rebels in Kosovo. The Albanians are trying, or not the Albanians, the Kosovars are trying to break away from Serbia. Serbia's not letting them. Human rights violations, and really there's lots of human rights violations on both sides, but the United States and NATO is more sympathetic with Kosovo. And as you saw there, Bill Clinton and other NATO countries, they authorized the bombing of Serbian forces. Okay, so this sounds very much like humanitarian intervention. This was not UN authorized. UN did not authorize this. This was just NATO. So it wasn't unilateral, but it was basically the same thing as unilateral. States made this decision on their own to say, we're going to intervene to protect against human rights violations using force. Here's the thing, though. NATO actually did not claim humanitarian intervention. Now, on the one hand, they said there were humanitarian reasons for doing this, but that's not why we're going in. We're going in for completely different reasons, blah, 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 self-defense, that. So NATO also didn't get UN Security Council permission. Security Council actually would have said no, and this would have been Russia. Russia's got Serbia's back, and so they would have said no, so NATO didn't ask. And the theory was it was better to ask forgiveness than permission. But the point here is that they actually didn't claim humanitarian intervention. They just said, we're going in. And so if we ask, is there a right to humanitarian intervention? That's a tricky one. On the one hand, you might say, I have a right to go stop that mom from beating her kid. So are you willing to give that right to everybody else on you? If they perceive that you're mistreating your child somehow, can they intervene on you? And that's a thing that we're a little more hesitant about. We like our code of ethics and we think what we're thinking is right, but we're a little more hesitant to say that to everybody else. So for example, if for example, the United States said, we claim the right to humanitarian intervention, then do you have to give that same right to China if they think something is happening in, say, Vietnam, and they can just send in troops and do something there? So what this comes down to is just looking at how states have operated with this. There's probably no right to humanitarian intervention. Like, it's not something you can say, states, this is what it means to be a state. States have the right to do this. So again, this just reinforces that point. It is definitely illegal. There's no right to it. But the question is it moral to do this? Or we could ask the opposite question, is it immoral to sit and let human rights violations happen? Is there a duty? And that's the next question you want to ask is there a duty to this?